Good morning, everybody, or is it afternoon by now? I'm not sure. I have been under the weather the last couple of days, mostly due to bronchial issues, postnasal drip, allergies, basically, which I'm kind of surprised with, especially was it Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah, Tuesday or Wednesday, we had a fairly good snowfall. Um, they're already talking about the chances of more snow this weekend, stretching from Colorado all the way up to Maine, which is kind of like, wow. Yeah. Um, it's, yeah. I don't even know how to describe it. Um, I was kind of expecting something. I wasn't expecting it to be this. I was actually expecting it to be worse because of all the tracks and all the things I've been looking at. Um, a lot of the predictions were some bad winter weather. I know some places have gotten it worse than the Midwest, which is what my area is considered the Midwest. I consider it Central America, part of. I consider the middle of the U.S. because we are literally the most central state you can consider, I think. But that brings me to some of my key points that I want to talk about today. I was going to read chapter and verse from the Bible, but for some reason, my eyes are not focusing on the small print in my Bible, which makes me go, great, am I going to need to go out and buy a large print Bible? Which, if that's the case, so be it. I mean, my father was in his lower 40s when he got himself a large print Bible. I am now in my upper 40s, almost. Well, I'll be 50 this October. October 21st of 2021, I will be 50 years old. Some days I feel it, some days I feel older, some days I feel younger. But knock on wood, I'm still surviving and thriving and being mindful of what the doctors tell me to do, tell me that I need to do for my health, which, I hate to say it, my father was too stubborn to do. Or, I don't know if it was I can't even say if it was my father's fault. I say it's a combination of his fault and mine and mom's fault for being picky. Luckily, I'm not picky no more. Unfortunately, mom still is. But that's life. We just have to learn how to deal with each other. Anyhow, one of the key points I wanted to talk about today is, and this is all weather-based. This is all Earth weather-based. The first one is the factor that scientific study has found out that in the last decade, I think they said, we have been losing 1.2 trillion tons of Arctic ice a year due to the increasing climate issues. Well, I can understand that. I mean, it was known that the polar ice caps would drop off chunks of ice every so often due to just natural rhythm. But the fact is that we are losing 1.2 trillion tons worth of that Arctic ice a year. It is predicted and believed that if it continues in the rapid amount that it's happening, that within the next decade we might not our coastlines on every continent will diminish, which basically means low-lying cities that are within flood zones may not be around. I mean, look at some of the cities along the Mississippi tributary. Mississippi, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, any state that has a city lying close to the coastal levels and are at or below sea level, um, will get flooded unless we find a way to keep the floodwaters out. So big cities like, I can't even think of any big cities, but there are major cities that get flooded every year, or have flood issues every year due to rising sea waters or just heavy melts in the upper Rockies and whatnot. St. Louis, along the Mississippi River, Bowling Green, all those cities that got flooded back in the Great Flood of the '90s along the Mississippi River. Those cities might get affected. New York will get affected. Miami, maybe Daytona, whatever that other city is. But Florida, lower parts of Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, even parts of Texas are, once, before we started building big cities on those points, were once swamps. So if we continue to lose that much ice in the next 10 years, those cities may be saltwater cities. I mean, literally, they're either going to have to uproot the whole city, move them further north. Excuse me. It reminds me of a vision of some, I can't remember the gentleman's name, who drew a map of America alone. We're not talking about Europe, because I don't know how Europe's going to handle it, if they're already handling it, because there's a lot of cities in certain parts of coastal Europe that they're either below sea level or right at sea level, and they have special floodwater breakers to keep the cities from getting flooded by the ocean. But this gentleman drew a map of America where the Mississippi Valley literally became wider. Florida was underwater. There was no Florida left. The coastline had come inland by about, what did I say, 50 to 100 miles, maybe, on both east and west coast. The difference about the west coast, though, is the fact that, for the most part, most of the west coast is somewhat mountainous because of the Rockies and whatnot, but still, cities along the California coastline, the Oregon coastline, and the Washington State coastline were either cut in half or are basically underwater. Can't remember who the gentleman was, but he had some sort of vision and made the map. So I don't put my 100% lot in with people who have visions or whatnot. I know, though, from past studies like Nostradamus and Edgar Casey, and I read a couple other books. One of them was Mary Summer Rain's books with no eyes. All three of those are modern day, well, within the last century or so. Nostradamus is the oldest of the three visionaries, prophets, however you want to call them. I know what the Bible says about prophets, but the thing is, there's a lot of prophets in the Bible itself, so it's kind of like, I don't know. But it just concerns me that because of our climate, our greenhouse gases from a lot of different countries, and I'm not going to go into trying to list those countries because some of them I know, some of them I don't know. But just the factor that we're losing 1.2 trillion tons of Arctic sea ice from I mean, you can go on. NASA has a webpage where they showed the last 10 years of Antarctica and its changes in the last 10 years of how much greener it's shown and how much less ice it has. So it's kind of like one of those, yeah, that might be something that we need to be concerned about. Now, I'm not trying to tell anybody who lives on the coast to pack up your stuff and move inland. I'm just saying, monitor your flooding in your zones, because when you start getting more and more severe floods in your area, that's going to be something you want to be concerned about. I know because of Hurricane Sandy and how bad it hit the New Jersey, New York coastline, and the damages and flooding and all the stuff that occurred. I mean, there's a section of, and I can't remember what the name of that section was, that the power didn't go off before the flooding hit, and when the flooding hit, it caused major fire damage, not just flood water damage, but fire damage. It burned down half a town. Those kind of things are going to get worse. Hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, flooding, natural disasters are going to start getting worse and worse and worse until things until either the powers that be decide that enough is enough, maybe we've learned our lesson, or the natural disasters that serve a purpose have served their purpose, whether it's reshaping the face of our planet or what. The other one I wanted to talk about that I saw in one of the news bleeps, blurbs, whatever you want to call them, that I saw and went, wow. I feel sorry and somewhat for the people who live in California. Californians have a rough life, not just because of their everyday life and the hustle and bustle and all the human elements. I'm talking about nature itself. California has the Santa Ana winds. And those winds can stir up all kinds of things. Natural cause wildfires, high winds, earthquakes. And the latest one, mudslides in California due to the weather. Well, yeah, I can see where the weather is a contributing factor. You've got all that extra snow and rain that you're not used to. Areas that have been, hill country that have been remade by mankind by either removing the forests or removing elements that keep the earth intact. And what I mean by that is factor, it has been proven by the forestry department, scientists, and various ecological studies, that if you have a hill and that hill has trees and you remove the trees, which either you're removing just the top half of the tree and leaving a stump, or you're removing the whole thing, including cutting out as much of the root system as you can. Well, it's been proven that that root system that is part of the trees, if the tree is healthy, the root system is healthy, and you remove it from a hillside, what you're doing is you're taking away the support of the hill. Now, I know that's not always true, because of the fact that there are times where the soil itself is so saturated in moisture that even the roots can't keep the soil from what they call a liquefaction factor. And what that means is during a heavy rainstorm, after it's been raining for long enough time, that the soil literally is so saturated in liquid that the soil starts acting like liquid and starts just moving in whatever direction gravity takes it, which causes mudslides. The other thing that causes soil liquefaction is certain kinds of earthquakes can literally cause the soil to become almost liquid-like and flow with the rippling effect of the earthquake. But the mudslides in California, from what I understand, from what I've been reading, is that area of California has been having a larger than normal rain factor as well as snow. So when you get the liquefaction of the soil due to the moisture from both rain and snow, something's going to give. I did not read far enough to see if there was any damages to home or real estate or lives. I just know that I read that part and went, wow. I have not heard of a mudslide in California in quite some time. And I used to have family out there. I don't know if I still do. I might have a cousin or two that lives out there. But all these different changes that are happening literally right on top of each other, literally stacking up. One of the things I've monitored is NASA, and they're using the satellites and using information they're getting from the satellites about the sun and our planet and just various different scientific information. And I go, yeah, okay. They made a prediction about severe weather due to the sun's activity. But now they're talking about how in the next excuse me, in the next 5 to 10 years, we can see anything from severe drought to severe winters. Basically, winter's getting colder and summer's getting warmer. And I'm like, okay, well, something we all just have to learn how to deal with. The thing is, a lot of the severities that's been happening on our planet alone is due to human factor. Now, I say this a lot because of the factor, human beings, for as intelligent as we are in certain realms of existence, we are clueless, if not, I hate to say this, dumber than a monkey. Now, if anybody's seen Planet of the Apes, even the apes consider the monkeys the low-level species of the primate family. We don't consider long-term effects on our environment with a lot of things that we do. From dumping trash to burning fossil fuels. Germany, when I was there in the 80s, was, probably still is, a very pristine, a lot of wildlife, a lot of forestry and whatnot. The Black Forest of Germany, or the Black Forest of Europe, which is in Germany and Austria, is one of the most pristine old world forests. Problem is, within the last, I'd say 20 years, they've been having issues with acid rain causing the forest to die out. And they try to do everything they can to prevent this. The reason why that happened is because of the factor of long-term use of fossil fuel without adequate or enough factories having environmental scrubbers. I know I've talked about how when I was there that a lot of the factories that I saw in the area that I was in had these special systems within their smokestacks for the factories that scrubbed out a lot of the greenhouse gas particles. Now, that was back in the 80s. Obviously, they weren't as effective as I thought. Either that or just because of the fact that the whole globe has been contributing to the factor of the greenhouse gases in the acid rain in places like Germany. It all boils down to the factor that we need to be more conscious and put more effort into protecting our environment, not just for the environment factor, but for our factors, for our own longevity and the planet's longevity. Because it has been proven the more old world forests, especially the rainforest, because the rainforest takes care about, what do they say, 60 to 75% of the atmosphere's breathable oxygen. The more forests we cut down, the more plants we destroy, the more old growth rainforests that we cut down for whatever reason. And I don't care no more what the reasons are anymore, because I feel that we could be living in harmony with the planet and with the way the planet was back before deforestation. Back before the 1900s, probably before the mid 18th century, 1800s, whatever. But, and I'm blaming it on Anglos, white people. I'm blaming everything on white people. Sounds bad because I'm a white guy, but you know what? When you realize your own race, your own skin tone, is the major contributing factor to a lot of what's been happening, and everybody just started following what we were doing because, either that's the way they wanted to be or that's the way they were told to be. I don't know. But the thing is, before population growth spurts, before the demand for hardwoods and mahogany, and clearing forestry for agriculture or for cities or whatever reason, we're just arrogant. And I don't mean just white people. I mean the whole mankind in itself. We're just a bunch of arrogant fools who are just like, oh yeah, nobody's really, there's no seeable use for this whole rainforest section here in this area. We need to cut it down so we can plant crops and build cities. Dude, God put those trees there for a reason. God put everything on this planet for a reason, not for us to just destroy it and do whatever we want with. I mean, you got to realize, the less rainforest, the less forestry, the less plant life that is on this planet, and I don't mean just plant life, I don't mean just crops, I mean trees and ferns and forestry and places like that. We're losing the planet. We're literally causing the planet to not be able to clean the carbon dioxide out of the planet and give us oxygen so we can breathe. It's one of the reasons why there's an increase of illnesses and breathing issues, and probably even between the polar ice caps melting the way they have been and our deforestation. Who knows what kind of ancient bacteria is inside those ice caps that are melting, that is getting released into the planet. Could be one of the reasons why COVID came around. How about all the trees that we've been cutting down in Africa, or all the forests we've been cutting down in Central America or South America? Do you realize natural medicine comes from those trees that we're cutting down? Anybody ever watch Medicine Man? Think about that. They didn't just make that movie just because it sounded like a good movie. They made that movie to make a point. The person who decided to create that movie was trying to make a point. Not about deforestation, but the fact that old world rainforests in South America and Africa have various items plant life and insect life that can be used to make medicines. Oh, speaking about things that are happening around the world, I read something else. There's a new form of malaria in Africa. A new form of malaria from mosquitoes in Africa. Thanks to modern day mass transit and mass shipping and cargo and whatnot, who says that malaria mosquito is going to stay in Africa? A lot of people thought that the COVID that started in Asia, in China, was going to stay in China. And I was like, well, that's not going to be that's going to be hard to do, because after China is connected to Europe by land, it's connected to Africa by land. There's like a very short strip of land that attaches Africa to the Saudi Arabian Empire, which is connected by land to China. And due to mass transit and mass cargo, yeah, it was inevitable. It was inevitable to get spread around. There's not one continent that has not been touched by COVID now. Actually, I'll take that back, because I haven't heard anything about any cases in Australia. But all the big five, Europe, Asia, Africa, North and South America, we all got it. I don't mean to be putting fear in anybody, but the thing is, you got to realize we are all connected in one way, shape, or form. So anything that's happening in one part of the globe affects the other part of the globe. Now, the mudslides in California might not affect anybody else, but it's what's causing the mudslide. What's causing the 1.2 trillion tons of ice a year to be melted, to melt away from the polar caps. Just food for thought. What would happen? What do you think could happen if all the ice in the North Pole melts away? Because they've already proven there's no land mass, there's no solid land mass underneath all that ice. Only down south in Antarctica has actual land underneath all that ice. So if all the ice were to melt from the North Pole, and most, if not all of it, from the South Pole, I can say two things will happen. One, definitely there will be mass flooding. It will literally reshape the face of the planet. But what other things could happen? I mean, we don't know what may or may not be in that ice. Scientists have already pulled out enough cores from both Antarctica and the Arctic to say that inside a lot of the cores they found fossils, they found bacteria, they found all kinds of ancient, old school stuff. Now, let's say there's who knows what kind of diseases, bugs, whatever, in those polar caps, and it all melts away, which means all the stuff that's been preserved in that ice can get out. Now, I joke about it sometimes. It's like I've seen like movies or TV shows where they got down into the ice and were walking through what looked like a naturally created tunnel, and inside the tunnel they saw like whole dinosaurs, whole mammoths, whole saber-toothed tigers intact inside that ice at various levels of the ice. And it's like, if that was real and those critters came out in a natural thaw, what kind of havoc could those animals, those creatures, wreak? Just think of this. The average woolly mammoth, or the biggest woolly mammoth that came out of the Siberian tundra, which was intact but dead, of course, found food in its mouth. Day after tomorrow, that scene where they're walking through the was it day after tomorrow? Or was it the other one? Yeah, it's day after tomorrow. They're in the Natural Museum, and he's reading that they found the woolly mammoth with food still in its mouth. That means that thing froze instantaneously. Had no chance of running. It just, boom, hit him. Now, we know for the most part dinosaurs did not exist during the same time as a woolly mammoth or a saber-toothed tiger. So we don't know. We don't know 100% what's underneath that ice. We just know that from core samples there were fossils, there were bacterial elements, there was all kinds of different stuff from the pre-ice age, ice age era. So it's one of those things where it's like, what's being released into our environment, or into our atmosphere, when all that tonnage of ice gets melted? And they're talking about 1.2 trillion tons per year, not per decade, per year. 1.2 tons in 1 year being melted away. We don't know what's getting released in the atmosphere or the oceans or whatnot as it melts. Heck, under the water could be a prehistoric oceanic dinosaur that's going to thaw out, be alive, and start wreaking havoc on our ocean system. We don't know. I mean, we get stories, or we just get stories on a regular basis, and then it stopped. And it makes me wonder if it was a hoax or not about the Loch Ness Monster. Scientists have been trying to figure it out for, is it real? Is it not? They found out that the loch itself, the Loch Ness area, is deep enough with cave systems that look like they go out into the ocean or go into various parts of the other lakes. Don't know. Really do not know. They haven't. I don't know if they proved it to be a hoax or if it was just one of those, oh yeah, wow, there could be an actual Loch Ness Monster that's been hiding in these caves or whatnot, especially if it's an aquatic type of animal that does not need to come up for air for large periods of time. That, in fact, they don't know if there's air pockets in some of these caves because the drone or whatever they use to explore the loch itself couldn't go into, for whatever reason, couldn't get into, could not go through certain areas because of lack of signal or what. But if Nessie, as the Scots have aptly named the Loch Ness Monster, is real, first off, where'd it come from? Second off, an animal that large has to have more fish than that loch probably has. In fact, I don't even know if they have fish in that loch. And if they don't, it could be because of Nessie. But the thing is, the potential chance of a prehistoric animal, whether it's a land-based animal or a ocean-based animal, existing in ice that we can't fully explore, if the woolly mammoth that was discovered in Siberia, I don't know when, was found encased in ice and did not survive, well, there's chances that there are other creatures from prehistoric times that could be encased in Arctic ice, that the chances of it actually being alive after millions of years is slim to none. Me? I read stories about various prehistoric animals, and out of all the prehistoric animals that I would love to see, but I don't know if I would want to deal with, would be the dryer wolf. The dryer wolf was about the size of a horse in prehistoric times. In fact, most animals were bigger, much bigger than they are nowadays. They've kind of shrank. I would love to see a dryer wolf. Not because the fact that wolves are my favorite animal, but reading certain legends and stories and whatnot from Norse mythology, every time that they start talking about a wolf, there's like 3 different wolves that existed in Norse mythology, but all of them were the size of horses and could be ridden. The worst of the worst out of the ones that I've read about is, I'm hoping I pronounced this name right, Finrin. Finrin was a child of Loki. It's kind of strange to think that a human-like entity could birth a wolf, a dryer wolf. But that, in fact, sometimes in Norse mythology, a child of does not always mean your child, like you helped create it. It's also loosely meaning anything that you raised. Let's say I was capable of raising a bear or a wolf or any other animal that's considered dangerous because it's wild. But let's say I was able to raise it from a cub. In Norse belief and whatnot, that animal is my child because I raised it. So it's one of those things, like, you have to understand the terminology and their meanings behind it. But Finrin was a wolf that Loki raised, I'm going to say. But he also became aggressive and dangerous and hostile. You also got to realize, though, Loki was considered the trickster of Norse mythology. So whatever caused Finran to become dangerous and hostile, that they had to put it down. In fact, Tyr lost his arm or his hand to Finran, or was it Finran or some other wolf? But a lot of the descriptions and depictions in Norse mythology talks about how these wolves in their mythology were huge, monstrous animals. And I'm like, that could be a dryer wolf right there. And dryer wolves are much, much, much bigger than their current cousins, I guess you'd call them. I don't know. But the thing is, and sorry for the sidetrack, but I just went there. The thing is if we're losing that much ice, and we're having out of season disasters. Now, mudslides have no season. It depends on the moisture in the soil and various different other factors that I'm not totally familiar with. But the thing is, if we're having unseasonably cold weather or unseasonably warm weather, and it's snowing in places that they don't normally get snow. Like, I did a video not too long ago that I talked about how there was that a certain part of Arizona that does not get snow. I mean, it's not used to getting snow that lasts more than 30 minutes or an hour after sunrise. It was noon. It was midday, and there was snow all over the ground and all over the highway. That there was a pile up that took them hours to clear up. And the thing is that the severity of the accident literally caused the snow to turn red. Now, that could be from anything from brake fluid to, various kinds of motor oil, gasoline, God forbid, people. But the thing is, the accident was that bad in Arizona. In an area of Arizona, I can't remember what highway, I think it was Highway 32, and I think Highway 32 goes from either New Mexico to Phoenix or to Tucson. I'd have to look it up again. But it was the snow that lasted almost a whole day was in a part of Arizona that gets snow. Because when I first heard about, snow in Arizona, okay, yeah, Flagstaff. Flagstaff is in the northern part of Arizona in the mountains. And I just kind of went, okay, yeah, Flagstaff. Then I read Highway 32, and I'm like, Highway 32 does not go through Flagstaff. At least I don't think it does. But the whole thing just kind of made me go, what? And I had to start doing weather checks and weather report and observations. And my weather report says that today's supposed to be nice and sunny. Tomorrow's supposed to be rainy, and then Sunday is supposed to be snowy. And I'm like, okay, rain on Saturday is not a big deal because I work Saturday morning. As long as it doesn't start snowing until after I get home, because I don't want to drive. Luckily, I'm supposed to get out of there at 3. I don't want to be driving on Sunday, because if it rains most of Saturday with cold weather, and then it gets super cold and starts to snow, underneath that snow, that wet land, that area that's wet, is going to be slippery as all get out. And I don't want to be driving it. In fact, Wednesday, I was supposed to close, and I went into work, and they had already sent the morning person home. Well, they sent one of the two morning people home. The other morning person was supposed to be there all day. He was already scheduled to be there all day. He was the GM. And I got a text message from the other morning person saying they're sending me home early, and I'm like, it's only 10:30 in the morning. Why are you getting home? And it's like, business has been slow yesterday, and Debbie doesn't think it's going to be busy. And I was like, okay, sure, all right. And she was even telling me, don't be surprised if they send you home. And I'm like, okay, sure, whatever. Well, I went in at my scheduled time, and I didn't even punch in yet. I looked at the reports to say that our daily reports, which gives us our gross income and our labor count. Well, let's just say the labor was very high and the income was very low. I'm just going to say that the labor was above 30 and the income at 2 p.m. was below 200, which means they didn't make a squat. Like, they had nobody come in, which I kind of understood because Tuesday night it dumped a lot of snow. Literally dumped a bunch of snow overnight. Was that Tuesday? Yeah, that was Tuesday morning, early Wednesday, so in the middle of the night. So when I got there, I was like, I called Debbie, our boss, and said, hey, look, he hasn't had any business today. He's had the labor is at 37, income's not even 200. It's 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Usually I can come in at this time of day and see, closer to $400, $500 on a good day. She's like, yeah, if you don't mind taking the day off, it'd make it easier on everybody. And I was like, well, that's why I'm calling, because I want to know what you want me to do. You're the one who has to worry about numbers and whatnot. I'm just relaying the information. So Wednesday, I just didn't even punch in. I just told the GM, said, here's my phone number. If you get into a situation where you think you need me, try to give me a call. Well, I went home. I didn't get a phone call, and at like 5:30, 6 o'clock, I tried to call the store, and the phone line was busy. And I was like, Jerry, do you think I should go in just to check on him, or maybe he's just currently taking a phone order? And Jay and I both went, you know what? If he really needs me, he'll call. Well, I went in yesterday, and I talked to him about it. He goes, well, I wasn't really busy. I mean, I was able to handle everything myself. I just took the phone off the hook for a while because I was getting tired of running back and forth between DoorDash and regular customers. And I just went, oh, well, I know we get yelled at by the DoorDashers for this, but for security purposes, we should have had that back door locked, because if there's only going to be one person in the store, I don't like that back door being open, because it opens us up to the potential of somebody coming in and stealing a soda or stuff like that, because we all kind of got used to the fact of that, oh, the wind's blowing, the back door sometimes rattles like somebody's coming in. So I was like, oh, well, yeah, you should have had the back door locked, and you should have given me a call if you were getting that busy. He goes, no, it wasn't the fact that it was busy. It was the fact of that, I had to give the DoorDasher the order and deal with people up front. I went, oh, so basically you had enough time in between customers to make the DoorDash food, and then come up front and deal with customers. And then when the DoorDasher came in, you just had to give them their food. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, sure. No big deal. Glad everything went well. So it's worrisome that if we start having bad weather again, that's going to happen. Granted, Sunday and Monday I'm off, so I'm not too worried about what's going on there unless they call me in the morning time. I just hope they don't, because Jerry Ann and I need 2 days off together to complete or start and hopefully complete projects around the house. Anyhow, this became another long video, and I apologize. But hopefully later on tonight, my eyes will be able to read, and I'll do another video with a Bible read for the future. Anyhow, you guys have a good day. Oh, I am skipping stuff right now. If you guys enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, or maybe if you have information that I didn't have about what the subject of the day was, go ahead and put it in the comment box, and I will do my research on that and make comments. If you're not a viewer, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and then a little bell will pop up, and you can click on the bell, and YouTube will put in a new video. So until next time, have a good day. Be safe out there if you're in areas that are getting hit by bad weather. I would suggest we all be safe, because the future is unknown, and Mother Nature is getting a little bit more chaotic as the days go by. So be safe. Have a good day. God bless. Bye.